Hi everyone, welcome to lanretsolutions. In this channel today, we are going to be taking past question review, and we are going to be focusing on agricultural science, paper 1, May June 2008. So let's kick up. Well, this is a WAEC past question, so we are going to be looking at comments by WAEC, observations, candidate strengths, their weaknesses, and the advice of WAEC. These are all geared towards helping us so that we can perform better in subsequent examination. We are going to be starting with the general comments now. So general comments of WAEC. What is WAEC's general comment about this paper? This paper compared favorably with those of previous years in standard, the skill tested and the coverage of the prescribed examination syllabus. The questions were straightforward and clearly itemized to ease comprehension. The rubrics were clear, while the marking scheme was flexible and exhaustive. The performance of candidates were better than the previous year. The candidate population of over 1 billion had a raw mean score of 21 and a standard deviation of 11.05 as against the raw mean score of 19 and standard deviation of 11.09 in the previous year, which is May June 2007 WAS, that's WAEC, with candidature of 952,649. So that is the general comment of WAEC about agricultural science paper 1 May June 2008. Let's move now to the candidate strengths. What are the strengths identified by WAEC for this paper? Candidates were able to name the class of the manure to which specimen A, poultry droppings, and specimen B, NPK 15-15-15 belong. They were able to identify the equipment label C, incubator. They were able to identify specimens E, that's maize weevil, F, cotton, stainer, box, and dicos, and G, that's a termite, and E, grasshopper. They were able to identify specimens I, J, K, and they were able to state the specimens, the functions of the specimen, and also give the product that can be obtained by the specimen. Now let's move over to weaknesses. What are some weaknesses that were identified? Majority of the candidates were unable to list the characteristic of specimen A, which is poultry droppings, and specimen B. They were not able to list precautions to be observed when applying specimens A and B. Majority of the candidates were not able to state which of the specimens A or B would be recommended to improve clay soil and give reasons. Majority of the candidates were not able to identify the equipment label D, which is a milking machine, name the parts labeled I to V in diagram C, which is an incubator, and D, and also state precautions to be observed when using equipment C and D. They were not able to name the part of the plant usually attacked by specimens E, maize weevil, F, cotton balls, okra fruits, ackee apple, G, termite, and specimen H, grasshopper. They were not able to give ways by which each of the specimens E, F, G, and H damages crops. They were not able to state method of controlling specimen E. Then majority of the candidates were not able to state the functions of specimen K, which is a rumen, and also name the process involved in preserving fresh quantity of specimen L, which is a meal. Having looked at the weaknesses, now let's look at WAEC's advice. What is WAEC's advice to us? Or to the schools? Schools should be compelled to operate a demonstration farm as a condition for presenting candidates for agricultural science examination. Another advice by WAEC is that teachers of agricultural science should pay more attention to practical demands of the subject rather than theoretical concepts. Then excursions and field trips to places of agricultural importance should be made compulsory for schools. Then government should give financial assistance to schools to enable them establish an integrated farm for teaching and learning agriculture. Having looked at this, we can now move over to our questions. What are the questions and how do they look like? This is question 1 for WAEC Agricultural Science, May June 2008. The first question says, what class of manure does each of the specimen A and B belong to? Second question says, list three characteristics of each of specimens A and B. Third one, list two precautions to be observed when applying each specimens A and B. List two precautions to be observed by when applying each specimens A and B. State which of the specimens is recommended to improve clay soil. Give two reasons for your answers. Now let's answer the question, but we are going to be starting with observation. What are some WAEC observation about question number 1? Now these are some of their observations. WAEC observed that this question was fairly attempted by the candidates. In question 1A, most of the candidates were able to name the class of manure to which specimens A and B belong. However, in 1B, majority of the candidates were unable to list the characteristics of specimens A and B. Also, many candidates could not list the precautions to be taken when applying each of these specimens A and B as demanded in 1C. So those are some of the observations about question 1. So now let's look at the possible and expected answers. Characteristics of specimen A, which is a poultry dropping. It is bulky, rich in microorganisms, contains many plant nutrients, improves soil fertility. The nutrient concentrations are fairly low, capable of binding soil particles together, improves soil structure, has a bad smell, it improves soil temperature, it is structureless, amorphous, tends to be neutral in reaction, low availability of nutrients, nutrients not easily leached, lasts longer in the soil, reduce soil erosion by improving soil structure, variable nutrient concentration. Now let's look at the characteristic of specimen B, which is NPK 15-15-15. Granular in structure, has a pungent smell, contains only few mineral nutrients. The concentrations of these nutrients are very high. The nutrients are fixed in definite proportion, not bulky in nature, does not reduce soil erosion. Nutrients are readily available. Then hygroscopic, they are also hygroscopic. Then easily leached, does not last long in the soil. Now let's look at the precautions to take when applying specimen A, which is poultry dropping. Should not be applied when fresh to crops on the field. Must not be allowed to touch the plant. Should cure properly before application. Fully decompose before applying. Wash your hand immediately after application. Wear protective clothing. Should be applied when soil is wet. Let's look at the precautions to take when applying specimen B, NPK 15-15-15. Do not allow direct contact with the plant. Do not apply when soil is very dry. When applying manually, always wear gloves. Wash hand immediately after application. Do not apply to alkaline soils. Do not eat, drink, or smoke when applying the fertilizer. Do soil tests to know deficient nutrients before application. Also in 1D, most of the candidates could not state which of the specimen A or B would be recommended to improve the clay soil and give reasons. Now let's look at some reasons, because the expected answer was supposed to be specimen A for 1D. That should be the expected answer, and the reason for that is that it binds clay particles together, thus opening and enlarging the pores. It improves water percolation, it improves aeration, it improves soil fertility, it improves soil drainage, it will improve soil temperature in clay soil, it will enhance the release of locked nutrients and make them more available. Without wasting much of our time, we are going to be moving directly to question number 2. The diagram below represents the two modern equipment used in commercial animal production. Use them to answer question 2A, B, and C. Now let's move on. This is the diagram as you can see it on the screen. Two diagrams. Identify the equipment labeled C and D. Name the parts labeled 1 to IV in diagrams C and D. State 3 precautions to be observed when using each of the equipment. Before we move on, we are going to be looking at observations of WAEC about question number 2. This question was fairly attempted by the candidates. Most of the candidates were able to identify diagram C, but some found it difficult identifying diagram D. In 2B, most candidates could not name the parts labeled I to VII in diagrams C and D. Now, we are going to do justice to all that in this question. Starting with identification of equipment. Equipment C is an incubator and D is a Milky machine. Now let's look at the parts labeled I to VII in diagram C and D. I is tray turning mechanism, II is egg, III is egg tray, IV is water for humidity, V is fire or source of heat, and VI is vacuum pump, and VII is teeth cup. That's it. So let's move on to the next answer. Precautions to be taken when using the incubators. Avoid fluctuations in temperature of the cabinet by repeatedly opening the door. The inside of the incubator should be cleaned regularly to prevent the organisms from settling on the shelves or corner of the incubators. Avoid eggs with cracked shells. Locate incubators indoor to protect from weather changes. Ventilation is very important during the incubation process. That is the essence for the open space in the incubator. Precautions to be observed when using the milking machine. Milker's hands should be thoroughly clean. Prior to milking, the udder and the teeth should be clean. Utensils used for milking should be clean, sanitized, smooth, and copper-free. Flavor or dust-producing feed should be fed to animals after milking. Milking barns should be well ventilated, free from flies. Nails of the hands of the milker should be well trimmed. We are moving now to question number 3. Question number 3 says identify specimens E, F, G, and H. Name the parts of the plant usually attacked by each of the specimens. Give 2 ways by which each of the specimens damages crops. State 3 methods of controlling specimen E. Now for question number 3, WAEC observed that this question was not easily tackled by the candidates. In 3A, most of the candidates were unable to identify specimen E, which is a maize weevil, FEM, which is cotton strainer bug or Dicardus, G is termite, and specimen H was grasshopper. In 3B, some of the candidates could not name the parts of the plant usually attacked by each of specimens E, F, G, and H. Now, what are supposed to be the expected answers? Parts of the plant attacked by the specimen. Specimen E is maize grains. Specimen F is cotton balls, okra fruit, ackee apple. Then specimen G is crop stem, the roots, the grains of the logs series, and specimen H, the parts attacked is the plant leaves and the young shoots. Also in 3C and D, majority of the candidates could neither give ways by which each of the specimens damages crops nor state methods of controlling specimen E. Now the expected answer includes damages caused to crops, bore in the grain of the maize and creates holes, destroys the embryo and ends, prevents germination, eats the endosperm and reduces food value, vents created serve as sites for secondary infections. In specimens F, Dicardus or cotton strainer bug pierces into mature cotton balls, okra fruit, and ackee plant strains. Vents created serve as sites for secondary infection. It also prevents good fruit formation in okra. Causes of premature drops of fruit. Now for specimen G, it chews the stems and the root of plants and the tubers. It destroys seed grains lying on the field. It weakens the stem and roots of plants and makes them to lodge. It also creates tunnel for secondary infection. It causes defoliation of crops. Its young shoots are destroyed. Wounds left on the crops can serve as sites for secondary infection. Buds are also destroyed. It also reduces photosynthetic ability of crop plants. It also reduces the growth of the crop plants. Now, method of controlling specimen E, which is a maize weevil: dry grains very well before storing. That's number one. Number two is harvest early soon after prying. 3. Store grains in airtight container, hermetic storage. 4. Apply pesticide to the grains before storage. 5. Fumigate storage facilities. 6. Using smoke to kill or ward off the weevil. And 7. Store grains in hot dried pepper/neem extracts. Now let's go directly to the last question, which is question number 4. This question says identify specimens I, J, K. Say 3 functions of the specimens I, J, K to the animal. Name the process involved in preserving the fresh quantity of specimen L. Give 5 products that can be produced from specimen L. Observation of WAEC about this question is that this question was well attempted by the candidate. In 4, a majority of the candidates could identify specimen I, which is a piece of liver. Specimen J is a piece of ruminant skin. Specimen K is piece of rumen or part of ruminant stomach. In 4B, although most of the candidates were able to state the function of the specimens I and J to the animal, they could not state functions of specimen K to the animal. Similarly, in 4C, majority of the candidates could not name the process involved in preserving fresh quantity of specimen L, which is milk. But you are going to have all the answers here. Specimens I is a piece of liver. Specimen J is a piece of ruminant skin. Specimen K, piece of rumen or part of a ruminant stomach. Functions of specimen I, that's a piece of liver. It helps in bioproduction and excretion of bilirubin, cholesterol, hormones and drugs, metabolism of fat, proteins and carbohydrates, enzyme activation, storage of glycogen, vitamins and minerals, synthesis of plasma proteins such as albumin and clotting factors, blood detoxification and purification. Functions of specimen J. Specimen J is a piece of rumen skin, and it prevents loss of moisture, reduces harmful effect of ultraviolet radiation, provides a protective barrier against mechanical, thermal and physical injury and hazardous substances, acts as a sensory organ, touch, detects temperature, helps regulate temperature, is an immune organ to detect infection. It's an immune organ to detect infections. It production of vitamin D and sensory perception. Functions of specimen K, which is a rumen. The mechanical breakdown of coarse fibrous feed into smaller particles, involved in digestion of fibrous feed by ruminants, vitamin B synthesis, absorption of volatile fat acid, fermentation of carbohydrate substances into simpler compounds, storage of orally ingested food for further digestion later. Low quality proteins are converted to higher quality proteins inside the rumen. Propulsion of ingested food into other stomach compartments harbors millions of microbes which aid fiber digestion. Now, process involved in preserving fresh quantity of specimen L, which is a milk, fresh milk. Chilling is 1. Number 2 is preheating. Number 3 is clarification. Number 4 is standardization. Number 5 is homogenization. Number 6 is heating. And number 7 is cooling. So those are the steps involved in doing that. So products that can be produced from specimen hair: one is butter, we have cheese, we have ice cream, we have yogurt, we have condensed milk, we have and dried milk, and so on, can be produced from milk. So this is the end of agricultural science May-June examination 2008. For more questions, please visit or send your email to lanretsolutions@gmail.com. And also, if you need the typed version of the question and the answer, you visit our blog at lanretsolutions.blogspot.com. I'm going to drop the two links for you in the description. I'm going to drop the email and our blog link for you in the description of this video, and also it will be displayed towards the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Have a nice time. Bye bye.